Hello and welcome. You're watching Ask PQ on Bloomberg Quint. I am Agam Vakil. Hi, Alex.
Hey, Agam. Well, this is the show that gets you answers to all your questions on equity, and you can send those queries to us on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and WhatsApp. You can also call us on 022-4540-4141, or you can mail us on askpq@bloombergquint.com. Only make sure to add the Ask PQ hashtag. How are markets looking, Agam?
Well, markets at this point in time are showing some amount of weakness, trending lower, and of course, a lot of this weakness on account of some weaknesses that we've seen in metals and the auto sector, but I'll talk about that in just a bit. For now, the Nifty and the Sensex both coming off by around 0.6%. The Nifty banking index is not declining as much. It's down only about 0.4%. In fact, at certain periods of time in this day, it's actually been largely flattish too. So we have seen some gains in some of the banks. But let's talk about your big movers, that is your gainers and losers through the course of the day. And there you have it. So we've started to see some amount of traction in your IT companies, considering we will have its earnings coming in next week, later on next week. So TCS Infy advancing by around 1%, and ICICI Bank, well, a little less than 1%. But it's the losers that I want to actually talk about, because there really isn't too much in momentum in terms of gainers. Now there you have it: Eicher Motors, M&M, and JSW Steel. Eicher Motors and M&M, of course, on account of weak sales. JSW Steel, after we've seen a downgrade come through from a broking house, and it's not just JSW Steel, Tata Steel also wilting under pressure. So among other losers, we have Vedanta, Tata Steel, and HPCL. In fact, we've seen CLSA cut their target prices on Vedanta as well. So that's perhaps the one big reason why we are seeing a weakness on the benchmark indices. But other than that, Alex, has been a quiet day of trade, not too much to speak for. Well, largely flattish.
All right. Well, that's how the markets look like right now. Let me get the two experts in for the day. Aditya Agarwala of Yes Securities joining me in the studio, and Gaurang Shah of Geojit Financial Services joining me remotely. Thank you so much, both of you, for joining us on this edition of Ask BQ. I'm going to start with a short-term query. This one, a mail query from Gunasekaran. He wants to know about ITC, which he bought at 277 rupees per share. He would like to hold on to the stock for at least another 1 to 2 weeks, and he's wondering whether he should do so first of all, and also what levels he should watch for. He also wants a short-term view on Mahindra Holidays and JK Lakshmi Cement, if at all he should make a trade. If not, then you can just skip it.
So first I'll come to ITC. It's gone into consolidation. Nothing much is happening here. He's making little money here, so I would advise him to put a stop at 280. If the stock breaks 280, then probably it will fall below his cost price of 277, I guess. That's his buying price. So a good strategy would be to place a stop at 280, and markets are showing some weakness. So if it breaks, probably stock can see further declines.
Okay. Yeah, we do have one more. Yeah.
So JK Lakshmi and
Mahindra Holidays. So if you would recommend a call, then...
So I would not recommend a buy into Mahindra Holidays. Yeah. JK Lakshmi, yes, definitely there was a good sharp up move in trade yesterday. Volumes were volumes are healthy. So I would recommend look at a dip to get into the stock. Probably close to about 305 to 306 is a good entry point for the stock. Right now it's trading around 315. I see a potential upside of 330 to about 350. But this will stretch over a period of 1 to 2 months. Use declines to get into the stock, not at current levels. Close to about 305 is a good entry point. Cements are showing some signs of a recovery, and there's an upbeat momentum in all the cement stocks. So yes, definitely I would recommend.
Okay, well, there you have it. That's coming in on your cement stocks, but we'll address the next one from Mayank Saraf. His question is on the paper industry as a whole, and he wants to know if they can be invested into. His question perhaps is also specifically on West Coast International Paper. And he says that both international paper as well as West Coast have come off quite substantially from their peaks, which were made recently. The question is, can they be made? Can there be investments which could be made into these stocks? So Gaurang, because it's a fundamental question, I'll come to you. Firstly, your view on the paper industry and whether or not you like West Coast paper or international paper.
Thank you, Agam, and good afternoon to all of you. So I think there was this great euphoria around the plastic ban when it came into Maharashtra, and then it got implemented in other states as well. Everybody thought that demand for paper would go up. But we were of a different opinion altogether. And if you have to look at the last 5-year history, this paper sector has been by and large an underperformer, not really a value creator or a wealth creator. So we've avoided the sector altogether. We have not recommended it, despite the fact that you have this plastic ban coming in. But more importantly, how effectively it is implemented at ground level, that's a big question mark. So you don't see any meaningful recovery in terms of paper demand going up. FMCG, private sector banks would be the preferred bets to hide in the longish period of time, because we expect earnings to improve much to a higher level in the next couple of quarters. So maybe you can look at mid-cap companies if you want to look at Dabur, Marico, Imami, Godrej Agrovet, amongst the frontline name Godrej Consumer, ITC, HUL. Private sector banks, Axis, ICICI, both look quite attractive, including HDFC. And a new entrant in form of RBL Bank or a Bandhan Bank would be recommended.
All right, let's take another short-term query now. Hariom Dhoot is asking on YouTube for a short-term view on Mindtree for the next 2 to 3 months. He's bought into the stock at a decent level, in fact, at 855. The stock is currently at 870. One of the IT stocks, in fact, that is buzzing in trade, as Agam pointed out at the start of the program. What's the strategy here?
So there is good consolidation that the stock has witnessed post a decline, and it's coming out of that consolidation right now, and is bought into at extremely good levels of 835. So I would recommend him hold on to the stock. There's upside potential in the stock which can propel it to levels of 940 on the upside. Probably put a stop at his cost price, so that once it goes below 835 or 820, if it breaks those levels, probably there'll be some downside to it. So protect your downside, put a stop at your cost. Once it goes, you're out of the trade without making any loss, and keep trailing as it goes up for targets of 940.
Okay. Well, there you have it. That's a technical view on Mindtree. We'll move on to the next query that we got on mail. This one comes from Kunal. He writes to us and he says that he's bought shares of Edelweiss at about 138, and he wants a long-term view here. Let's pull up Edelweiss. Let's see where it's currently trading at. Of course, we've seen a lot of volatility in this one, considering, so much volatility in NBFCs in general. It's currently at 180, and it's well above Krunal's entry price of 138. Gaurang, this one's for you. What would you do with Edelweiss? Do you like this one?
So no coverage, but if you are in the money, I think it's time to, if you really want to take your money off the table and want to look at diversified NBFCs, then there are 2-3 names that come to my mind. One is L&T Finance and Holding. Second one is Bajaj Finance, and third one would be Shriram Transport Finance. You would be better off investing in either of these 3 names.
We've got another question for you, Gaurang. This one, we got a WhatsApp from Sudarshan. He wants to know your views on Crompton Greaves Consumer for a long term, in terms of a fresh buy at the current levels. Stock is at 230 or thereabouts. What's the fundamental view here?
Again, this is also electrical appliances, peripherals, consumption, white good appliance kind of theme that we are, really tracking very closely. So likewise, we do like Havells and Bajaj Electricals. So Crompton Greaves Consumer, my sense is that it's a great company, great product recall, and a visibly longer shelf life. So if you want to get into the stock from a longish time horizon, I would definitely recommend that.
Okay, moving on, we have another query. Actually, we have one more long-term query, because that's the one that's coming to me right now. This one is on Samir Pandit, and he wants a view on Coal India. Gaurang, this one once again is for you. He's bought Coal India at 263. Do you like Coal India? What would you recommend to the gentleman?
So I think the output that came was just 1% down compared to what we've seen in the earlier months. And we have a target of 345, 365. This is with a disclosure that you need to have at least 2.5, 3 year plus time horizon, because mining, capital goods engineering, exploration, etc. related businesses are long gestation businesses, and you need to have longest time horizon. Not to forget, Coal India, one of the best placed companies in terms of natural resources and reserves of coal across the world. Quality has improved, and my sense is that demand is likely to stay robust. And more importantly, if you have to go by the statements made by the Ministry of Coal, India will not only be self-reliant and dependent, but also be exporting coal in the future. So that brings up a huge opportunity for companies like Coal India.
Okay, all right, let's take a question. In fact, in the auto space, remember they're in focus because of the auto sales numbers, and not a lot of great numbers with regard to the sales that you've received in December. But we've got a specific question from a couple of our viewers on Tata Motors. In fact, Gaurang, I think so a lot has been said over the last couple of months. We're still waiting for clarity about what's going to happen with regard to Jaguar Land Rover. But what would you say for somebody who has been buying on dips as a strategy for a long time? And we're talking about both Tata Motors DVR as well as Tata Motors. I won't get into the average price, but it's significantly more than what it is currently. What is the strategy here? Should they hold on for the long term? We're talking to you, Gaurang. This is for you, fundamentally.
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, I am a great believer of investment into Tata Motors shares and DVR from a long-term point of view. Very recently, we've heard that they have appointed a consultancy firm to improve the outlook and prospects for the JLR business that they took over a while back. Brexit remains an overhang, but I think everything is there in the price. China slowdown, again there in the price. America's tariff issues, already there in the price. So if I'm getting a company which manufactures Jaguar Land Rover at 170 rupees, and if my time horizon is say 3 years, let me say this, it might be surprising. Our targets are 365, Alex, with a 3-year time horizon. So there is a lot to be made and very little to lose in terms of downside.
Okay, well, that's that's sticking your neck out there, Gaurang, but I take your view entirely based on what we've seen on Tata Motors.
Well, yeah, there you have it. But moving on to Sterlite Technologies, we have Harshal Patel, who says that he holds Sterlite Tech at a 304, and he wants to know what can be done with it. He hasn't mentioned a time horizon or a technical or a fundamental view, so I'm going to take a technical view here. Aditya, this one's for you.
I will hold on to the stock. Stock has witnessed decent correction from 400 levels. I'll put a stop at close to about 275 and look for a target of 320 and 340 on the upside. So definitely thumbs up from my side. Hold on to the stock.
Okay.
All right. A bit of an open-ended question for you, Gaurang. Taking into account everything that's expected for 2019, not least of which is the elections and everything that moves because of that. Would you recommend any particular stocks that you're tracking, not necessarily with regard to what happens in 2019, but as of now, what are your top picks?
So FMCG remains the frontline theme, Alex. And whatever happens, consumption is not going to die down in India. It's a consumption-driven country economy. And my sense is that whatever this MSP, farm loan waiver, etc., the government is doing, will finally have a lot of money at disposable level to the semi-urban and rural folks, including you have tremendous demand from Tier 1, Tier 2 cities, metros, etc. So you have the likes of HUL, ITC, Dabur, Marico, Imami, Godrej Consumer Products. Other than that, I mentioned 2 names, Havells India, Bajaj Electricals. This is in line with the electrification of pan-India. Then you have follow-up themes like Bata India, discretionary spend, Asian Paint. All these are, somewhere correlated, interlinked to each other, that is consumption. Other than that, we like private sector banking. I named a few. In public sector banks, we like Indian Bank, Bank of Baroda, State Bank of India has a huge turnaround story for the next maybe about 1.5 to 2 year kind of time horizon. Despite the fact that the auto numbers are looking disappointing, we are positive on almost all the vehicle manufacturing companies, starting with Ashok Leyland, going down to Escorts, climbing up to M&M, Maruti, Tata Motors. I already elaborated at length. Two-wheelers, Hero MotoCorp, TVS Motors, Bajaj Auto, including a company which was outshining itself, Eicher Motors. I remain extremely positive on the 650 launches that they have done, and of course you'll have a couple more by the end of this year. So these are primarily the sectors, including metals have been underweighted today by some of the brokerage houses, but we remain positive on metals as well.
I do want to mark out right now, Agam, in fact, also viewing this. Let's pull up the Nifty intraday chart, because there's been a sudden drop, seemingly a sell-off that you can see down now about 116 points. This Nifty is down about 1% as of now, seemingly selling in a lot of those banking counters. Are you picking up anything more?
No, actually, I was going to throw this on up to Aditya to find out whether or not there is something technically which come of significance here, because this certainly is a very sharp drop. And I'm sure if we can also pull up the contributors list, if we do have that on us, and take a look at which are the stocks which are actually contributing to these losses. So, of course, we've seen that decline in HDFC and HDFC Bank through the course of the day. Reliance Industries, which was largely flattish, has now started contributing towards the downside. And perhaps there is no, help from, not too much help at least, from IT stocks. So, well, we're seeing that, decline. Aditya, 1,800 back to that level, possibly below that. Are you witnessing anything significant on an intraday basis?
So nothing significant as far as Reliance is concerned, but the PSUs were holding on. They have sold into, and some of the private sector names in the banking space are also witnessing a selling pressure. So Axis Bank, SBI, they're trading at the low point of the day, and along with that, HDFC is also selling off. So probably that is one space which has led to this sudden drop in the Nifty.
In fact, let's pull up the Nifty Bank and look at the intraday chart, because that will probably give you an indication as to where that real big drop happened. It's currently trading about 0.7% lower, and you can see a similar movement in the Nifty around that time. So perhaps that more or less describes what you are seeing in the stock markets as of now, at least with regard to the benchmarks. Let's take the next question here. Let's talk about the auto space, since those stocks are also in focus. Gaurang, you've already spoken about Tata Motors, but let's expand that and talk about Ashok Leyland, talk about Eicher Motors, especially with regard to the sales of the Bullet that you've seen. What are you really picking up with regard to that space? We've got an investor, Vivek Kanodia, who doesn't want a short-term view. He's looking at it for the next 10 years. So would you pick any names in the auto pack for him?
So if I have to, filter it down further, then Eicher Motors and Hero MotoCorp would be from the two-wheeler auto pack. Eicher Motors more so of the commercial play also. In the passenger vehicle, I would go in for Maruti and M&M. And escorts would be a theme as far as tractors and construction equipment, earth moving equipment is concerned. So that's going to be a broad basket. But let me give a word of advice. Never put large part of your capital on a single sector or a stock, because that also exposes you to a lot of risk.
Okay. Okay, actually, the next question is also directed towards you, Gaurang. It's to do with Viatech Wabag. We have Ayush Jain, who said he bought about 2,000 shares at 972 in March of 2015 and added 500 shares on every dip of 10%. He currently holds about 4,250 shares. His average price is 612. His question is, what should I do now? How would you help him out, Gaurang?
I think it's going to be a long and a painful road for recovery. We do have positive coverage, but a lot has happened in terms of the disappointment on earnings front, Agam. And my advice would be now don't add any more of Viatech back to your portfolio, because you already have a huge chunk of it at a very high price. Like I said, the parent is quite confident about the support in terms of technology and innovative products, R&D is concerned. But the problem is there has been some amount of vacuum with the execution front, and that's one of the reasons why we've seen the stock correct so sharply and has been underperformer for the last maybe about 2.5 to 3 years. But if you do want to give it time, stay invested, and my sense is over the next 2-3 quarters you should see meaningful recovery to come through. But again, for the level where you got invested, I think that to achieve will definitely take about 2.5 to 3 years.
We've got a couple of intraday views, one from Facebook, Satya Subhash, and another, in fact, on Biocon for the intraday. Would you have any recommendations for them?
So Biocon, probably one can look to go long, put a stop at 622. It's just about 1 rupee, 1.5 rupee away from the lows. So put a tight stop loss at 622 and take a long. You can expect target of 626, 628 on the upside.
Okay, and Kaveri Seeds, we've got a question from Satya Subhash.
Kaveri Seeds I would avoid at current levels. Post this sharp up move, stock is going into consolidation, so I would expect the stock to fall back to levels of 560 within that consolidation, and from there probably see an up move. So no trade in Kaveri Seeds for the day.
Okay, well, moving on to the next bunch of queries, we actually have quite a few. Okay, so we have Chetan Thail, who wants to know or wants to understand what the long-term prospects of future supply chain solutions are. Gaurang, do you track this one? And if you don't, is there anything else that stands out for you in supply and logistics?
So no coverage on this particular company, but in logistics, we do like Transport Corporation of India. We are positive on Blue Dart Container Corporation. Mahindra Logistics is another company that we are positive on. But again, all these are themes with a 2-year, 3-year plus time horizon. It's not going to be a 6 months, 1 year kind of theme that would create fabulous returns. It's going to take a while.
In the same breath, Gaurang, do you want to come in on Mold Tech Packaging? We've got Shefali who's asking for a fundamental view. She bought at 275, which is not too far from the current market price.
Unfortunately, I don't cover, so can't comment.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay, Mukesh Kumar wants to know what can be done with HDFC Limited. I'm going to take a technical view here and take a look at what it can be done. From what I understand, he's bought it at 2,000 and he wants to know if he should hold or sell. What can be done here?
So it will depend on his time horizon. If his time horizon is ultra short term, then probably I would advise him to put a stop at around 1960. If it breaks 1960, get out of the trade. But if its time horizon is longish, say within 6 months or a year, then recommendation will be to hold on to the stock. And if its stock starts to trade above 2000 again, then add on to the stock. So I would advise averaging on the upside rather than averaging on the downside, because if the stock starts to go down, just like we heard a query, the average buying price tends to be higher and the stock tends to trade at a very low price. So if the stock starts to trade above 2000, add on to it, because the momentum will again resume on the upside. And if it's ultra short term, put a stop at 1960.
Okay.
All right, it's that time of the show where we slip into the rapid fire segment. We try and take as many of your queries as possible in a span of 2 minutes, so do send them in. Would like to request both our experts to keep their answers as short as possible to accommodate as many questions as possible. The first one is for you, Gaurang. This one is CMI Limited. Rishabh Agarwal is wondering whether he should enter at current prices.
I'm sorry, which was the stock?
CMI Limited.
Well, we don't cover it, so can't comment.
Okay.
Okay, well, Ojwal Kumar wants to know what can be done with NMDC. I hope we haven't covered this already, but this is probably a short-term query. So I'm going to take this one up with you, NMDC.
I would not buy at current levels. Wait for the stock to go down, decline probably, and the stock doesn't do too much. So I would not recommend getting into NMDC. Probably look at other metal names like Tata Steel or JSW Steel or a Hindalco.
Okay.
Okay, Wizbaz has got a question for you. Graphite India for the next 5 years. He's bought 100 at 918. He's wondering if he should average. Price is currently around 750. Gaurang.
Well, we don't cover graphites and the HEGs of the world because we don't have conviction. And I would just advise a word of caution to all those investors who got invested into both these companies.
Okay, a question on 8K Mile Software. I'm sure this is a relatively easier one for you, Gaurang. We have Mahesh Chandra. He's bought it at 168. It's not too far away from his level. Your view here?
Well, rallies try to exit the stock. Don't see any much elevated levels. I would rather put my money into Ashok Leyland, which has corrected on fallback of disappointing numbers.
Okay, let's take another one. Kitex. Do you have a view on Kitex, long-term view that is, Gaurang?
Have a view and have a coverage with a disclaimer that there was some corporate governance issue, but now all those things are thing of the past. Long-term, continue to hold on.
Okay, and very quickly, Gaurang, Tejas Jain wants to know if he can buy South Indian Bank or Karnataka Bank.
Go in for Federal Bank. South Indian Bank, we are positive, but it's a very slow mover. We have a target of 20 and 22 rupees. On Karnataka Bank, no coverage. But Federal Bank or a DCP would be a better choice.
All right. Well, on that note, I'd like to thank both our guests, Gaurang and Aditya, for answering all the questions that came in today. In fact, all the questions that we could ask, because there were some that we couldn't. Do stay tuned, of course, to Bloomberg Quint for more. We promise to address as many of your questions as possible.
But remember, we're just a tweet, a post, or a call away, so keep your queries coming in. We promise to address all of them through our shows. For our previous episodes, visit our YouTube channel or website, bloombergquint.com. But up next is Power Lunch. Stay tuned in.